Are you planning to buy a CNC machine? Then you must know these 10 things. Hi, I am Rajeev Sreedharan and I have been making educational videos on CNC. I am presenting to you this video after a long gap with great pleasure. These inputs will be useful for buying a CNC machine as well as selecting the right machine while process planning. I hope you will enjoy this video. Machine selection is very important in process planning as well as when you are buying a machine. There are multiple factors which you need to consider when you are selecting a machine. First one is geometry of the component, size of the component, weight of the component, features available on the component, accuracy of the component, material with which you are going to make the part, the chip evacuation requirements, coolant flow requirements, number of tools requirement, floor space requirement, the cost of the machine, and service and space availability for the machine. Now let us see geometry of the component. Any cylindrical component you want to make, you need to select a turning center. If your part is cylindrical and having some minimum features of milling, you need to choose turn mill, and any non-cylindrical component you need to choose a milling machine. Size of the component. If your part is a short component, your decision would be different. If your part is a long component, the selection of the machine would be different. For doing a long part, you may want to have some accessories such as tailstock. This is a tailstock, and this picture shows a part supported with tailstock and in machining. Now you may also want to use a steady rest or follower rest if the part length is too high. Then the tailstock support alone may not be enough. So in case of steady rest, it is fixed in one location, and if you want to move it along with the tool, then you need to use a follower rest. Now another factor which you need to consider is the weight of the component. Now usually when we talk about turning, it is horizontal turning. The spindle axis will be horizontal. If the weight of your component is too high, then it is always convenient to load it on a vertical turning. The clamping, the loading, all these things will be easier on a vertical turning center. But again, when your part length is very high, then again you need to switch back to horizontal. Then in milling, you can have a tilting table or you can have a tilting head. If the weight of the component is less, tilting table is recommended, and if the weight of the part is very high, then a tilting head is recommended. So in case of tilting head, only the head tilts and the table is stationary. There is no rotary on the table. And in case of tilting table, the table will tilt and the table should have the capability to handle the weight of the component. Another thing which you need to consider is the features available on the part. So any cylindrical part with features symmetrical to the axis of the part can be done on a turning center, and cylindrical part with some features of milling, some holes which is offset from the center and some small features of milling, you can select a turn mill center. Any non-cylindrical part, you need to choose a milling machine. Again, it can be VMC, HMC, vertical machining center, horizontal machining center, depending upon the application. Now, if your part is having multiple features oriented at different angles, then you need to go for a 5-axis milling. So a machine with 3 linear axes and 2 positional rotary axes can be used for components such as this. When you want to do a part with feature like this, an impeller with a blade, the orientation of which is continuously changing, you need a machine with 5-axis simultaneous milling capability. Now let us look at this turn mill component. We already discussed minimum milling features are handled on a turn mill center. Now turn mill centers, there are two kinds of turn mill center. Turn mill center with C axis, that is the basic turn mill center, and a turn mill with Y axis. So if you want to know more about this, I have already done another video on turn mill machining concepts. You can view that. Now the point what we are going to discuss here is, now this particular pocket, a radial pocket, is having 90-degree edges. Now when you position your tool that in turn mill with C axis, that will be always oriented towards the center of the part. So in this case, if you see, the tool is oriented like this and there will be a lot of material left out here. So making a 90-degree shoulder like this will be difficult in turn mill with C axis machine. The same can be done on a turn mill with Y axis. Now comes mill turn. So if your part demand a lot of milling features, so the number of tools required to machine that part will become more, which makes it compulsory to have a tool magazine. So finally the machine selection should be a mill turn center. So this picture is of a mill turn center with 2 rotary, one rotary on the chuck and the other tilting axis on the spindle, milling spindle. So a part like this is a landing system part, landing gear. This kind of parts can be very well done on a Milton center, where the features of turning is less and features for milling is high. Even this part can be done using turning and milling. So in this case, turning and 5-axis milling, or this can be directly done on a Milton center. So the features where the turning is required, that plus the milling can be done in one machine in maximum operations in one setting. Now comes accuracy. When it comes to accuracy, you need to look for positioning accuracy and repeatability of the axis. There are hundreds of brands available in the market. You need to choose the right machine with the right accuracy for your requirement. Now I am going to show you few brands here, but omission of any brand does not indicate the importance of or non-importance of that brand. Ace Micromatic, Ajit Chamels, VFW, Chiron, DMG Mori, Doosan, Grove, Haas, Hardinge, Hamley, Hitachi CK, HMT, Harco, Hyundai Via, Jyoti, Kitamura, LMW, Lokesh Machines, Makino, Matsura, Mazak, Mitsui Seiki, Nakamura, Hokuma, Ama, Shees, Spinner, Sugami, WFL, Wilhelmine McCordell, JL. I am again repeating, omission of any brand here does not indicate the importance or non-importance of any brands. Now, the other factor which is coming to picture is material of the component. An aluminium need very high RPM, whereas materials such as titanium and Inconel need very high torque. So if you look at this torque speed chart, this point where the torque is very high, the speed is very less, or we can say when the speed is less, the torque is high. Then as the speed increases, the torque is also reducing. So depending upon the application, you need to select the right machine with the right torque. So your selection will depend on the material. Now another point which is coming into picture is chip evacuation. So using gravitational force, a machine with a horizontal spindle can have the maximum advantage. So you can see in this picture itself, the chips are flying away from the part. So even if you are making a hole drilling, a deep hole drilling, so the gravitational force itself will evacuate the chip. Along with that, if you are making use of the coolant pressure and through coolant, then the chip evacuation will be the best in this case. Whereas the other three cases where this is a tilting head and this is a tilting table, even this is a tilting table. So in these conditions, the chip evacuation will not be as good as this. In this case, if you are making a pocket here, so whatever chip is getting produced, there are chances that chip will get trapped inside the pocket. Of course, you can use the coolant pressure to evacuate it, but still there are chances that some of the chip will still get trapped into the pocket. Now if you see this is tilting table. Now if you are making a pocket and you are tilting it, then of course the chances are there that the chip will get automatically evacuated. But even in this case, if you are doing a deep hole drilling, that is, you are not getting the benefit of the gravity. So you need to go for the coolant pressure and through coolant option to get the chip evacuation. Coolant. Depending upon the application, you can choose flood coolant and spindle through coolant. Spindle through coolant is always beneficial when you want to do a deep hole drilling or deep pockets. Nowadays, this is almost compulsory to have quality components. But still, if your application do not demand spindle through coolant, you can avoid it so that you can save cost on the machine. Then you need to also look at the pressure requirement for the coolant. A standard machine will come with low pressure coolant, whereas the high pressure coolant will always help you to increase the tool life, and it will also help you to evacuate the chip effectively. Now comes number of tools. Number of tools are decided based on the number of features available on the part. So if your part demands so many features, so you need to have a machine with so many number of tools. Machine basically comes with different number of tools, tool magazine. So it can be 20 tools, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120. Some machines offer an array of unlimited possibilities, like any number of tools can be added by just adding modules. Another factor which you need to consider is tool size, which is to be used for the part, or the tool weight if you are using any specific special tools. So the tool weight also can be different. So that is another consideration which you need to look into. And if you are using the machine for mass production, where the cycle time is at most important, then tool change time also is an important factor to be considered while selecting the machine. Another important factor which need to be considered is floor space. So if your space is limited, you cannot have a bigger machine, and if you have unlimited space, then machine space is not a constraint. So this is another important factor. Cost. You need to always look for machines which can suit your budget. If you do not have any constraint, you can go for the best, and if you have constraint with the budget, you need to choose the best suitable machine for your application which can suit your budget as well. Another very important consideration is the service availability and the spares availability in your local market or in your region. So you need to choose the machine which can provide you the service and spares as and when required. Ace Micromatic, Edgy Chambers, BFW, Chiron, DMG More, Doosan, Grob, Haas, Hankook, Hardinge, Hamley, Hitachi Siki, HMT, Harco, Hyundai Via, Jyoti, Kitamura, LMW, Lokesh Machines, Makino, Matsura, Mosaic, Mitsubishi, Nakamura, Ukuma, Pama, Shees, Spinner, Sugami, WFL, Wilhelm McCardle, Zaire. So these are some of the brands which are popular in India and abroad. You need to choose the right brand and the right machine. Now, I am going to come again soon with the machine specification. So far what we have discussed is the basics. Now, if you have selected, if you have decided based on this, if you have selected to buy a turning center or a milling center, then you need to know what are the machine specifications which you need to know to buy or freeze a machine. I'll come back soon.